All right, welcome back. So if you're here, it's because you want to learn how to deploy a resource that has a dependency on another resource that resides in a different resource group from the current resource that you're deploying with ARM templates, right? So if you look at the screen right now, we see that we have a web app over here, and it has a app service plan. So before we continue, let's just take a look at the resource group here. This resource group, test RG, has just the app service residing inside of it. And it's using an ASP. If we click on the ASP, it's actually in a different resource group, something. So this actually is a very practical scenario because you may have a shared app service plan for your company or for your project, and you want to have multiple app services utilize that shared resource group or shared app service plan. So this would definitely fall in line. So once again, if we take a look at the something resource group, we see that it just has the ASP in there and a key vault. Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to give you a reminder that video timestamps are in the video description, as well as important links and GitHub links are inside the video description. So some of the things this video will cover is how to deploy an app service plan and an app service, how to deploy an app service to a different app service plan that resides in a different resource group, how to use parameters and variables for templates, how to use conditions. Specifically, we can use booleans to, flag what we do want to deploy and what we don't. And then finally, how to deploy a resource into a different resource group outside of the target deployment resource group. What I mean by that last statement is that if, say, you want to deploy the shared app service plan inside resource group A, and then all the app services are supposed to be inside resource group B, we can have one template that will handle all of that all at once. And we are going to go incrementally so that you can stop and learn at each step exactly why we're doing what we're doing and apply what makes sense for your implementation. Okay, so before we begin, I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of how the GitHub links are going to work. First and foremost, this link will be inside the video description. Secondly, basically, I kind of broke it down to a couple things. 00 denotes something that's like a precursor or basic. So ASP base means that it's just going to deploy an app service plan. 00 app service base just means it's going to deploy an app service tied to an app service plan deployed from this one. 01 is going to show you that it's going to deploy to a different resource group, but also create a duplicate. 02 is going to show you that it's going to deploy, but it's going to use booleans to not deploy duplicates. And then number 3 is basically the proper way to do it, which is using nested templates. So all three have some value in terms of learning, and they show you different things, especially 02 and 03. And 01 is just a good precursor to leading into how we got to more complex scenarios here. Okay, so here we are in Visual Code. We have the GitHub repository downloaded. So again, some quick things. This is the template. Template's always going to be the same. Parameters.json is going to have empty slots such as your ASP name so that you can quickly plug and chug what you need. And then example is just going to be an example that I'm going to use for the ease of this video, but also for you to see what an example value might look like. So one final thing before we start running ARM templates, we're going to take a look at the two resource groups that we're going to use throughout this video. Something H is going to be the resource group that houses the app service plan, and test.rg that you can see empty here is going to be the resource group that houses the app service. Okay, so to start, we're going to go inside 00-asp-base, which is just the app service plan deployment. We're going to go inside run command.txt. We're going to take the second example command and we are going to run this. That's going to fail because we're not inside the proper directory. You can go inside open an integrated terminal and run this over here. So while this is running, let's just take a quick look at this command that we're passing through. We're saying that the deployment with the name, Doge YT, and we're targeting the resource something H. So as I said earlier, something H is going to be the intended resource group for housing the ASP, and test RG is for the app service. So when we run this, we're invoking this template.json and this parameters example. So if we take a look at template.json, we see that it's just a base app service deployment, and the only parameter that we have is a name of the app service. We see that it's successfully deployed. That's great. And if we go inside parameters.json, this is where you can plug and chug your value. In this case, we invoked parameters-example.json, as we can see from the command. If I bring it up here on the bottom. So this is the intended name of the app service plan. Okay, so here we are inside Azure Portal. We're inside the resource group something H, and we can see ASP something H00 has been deployed, and it's ASP. So we know for a fact that that template worked. Okay, so now we're ready to deploy the app service. So let's go over to 00 app service base. We'll go right to run command.txt. We take the second line, which is already targeting the parameters example, right? We're gonna go over here on the directory, open an integrated terminal. Let's go ahead and paste that. So while this is running, let's take a look at this command. So same thing, we're saying, this is deployment label. The most important thing is that we're targeting test RG resource group, right? And we're using template.json found over here. Let's collapse this. Found over here, and parameters example.json. So if we take a look at template.json, we see that it basically has two parameters. One is site's name, which is the name of the app service, and the other is external ASP ID, right? As you can see, for resources, we're actually only deploying the app service, and we're referencing inside here, line 36, server farm ID, we're referencing the resource ID of the app service plan. Okay, so if we go over here to parameters.json, as always, this is your plug and chug value. If we go to the actual parameter file that we invoked, we see that the site name is test2023-00, which is what we intend to see for the app service name. And external ASP ID, once again, is the resource ID of the app service plan. So if you actually follow this, you'll see that it's subscriptions, resource groups, and it's going to something H. That's because that is eventually, if you go down the line, it's an ASP of the name ASP something H00, which is what we just deployed. And if you're not familiar with how to get the resource ID, when we go inside Portal to confirm that this app service has been deployed and linked to the proper ASP, I'll show you how to get the resource ID as well. Okay, so before we go to Portal, let's just make sure that we have this resource ID copied inside Notepad over here, just to be able to quickly confirm that it is indeed the same as a resource ID we're about to pull from Azure Portal. Okay, so here we are back in Portal. Before we confirm inside test RG that the app service has been deployed, let's go figure out how to get the resource ID. So you want to go to the resource in question that you want to get the ID for, and if you go to the top right corner, JSON view, you see right here it says resource ID. If you copy this and then we were to open this notepad to compare it with what we passed as a parameter, you pretty much see it's a one-for-one match. Okay, so now here we are inside test RG. If we were to hit refresh, we should see the app service. Sure enough, we see the app service over here. Let's click on this, and we see that it's tied to app service plan something 00H. If we click on this, go one step further, we see that it is indeed connecting to the one that we just deployed, something H. As you can see the resource group here. And if you want final confirmation, you go back to this apps, you see the same value here. Okay, so normally we would do cleanup after these deployments, but we're going to leave these resources here so that we can show some issues or some comparisons for the next part, which is in 01 ASP, indifferent RG but duplicate ASP. That'll make sense in a second. Okay, so now we're ready to go to 01 ASP, indifferent RG, and duplicate ASP. So that'll make sense in a second. So first, let's start by going to run command.txt as always. We take the second one. Quick reminder that you want to use the first one for yourself in plug and chug. We'll go inside the directory, open integrated terminal, and paste that. So while that's running, let's take a quick look at the command that we're passing through. As always, a deployment message or label, and we're choosing test RG as our resource group, template.json, and parameters example.json. So let's take a look at this template. Right. So this template has a few more things. It has the name of the app service that we intend, the name of the app service plan, the subscription ID of the app service plan, and the intended resource group name of the app service plan. Okay, and then we have this variable over here called ASP server farm ID, which is essentially going to try to concatenate strings to create the intended resource ID of the ASP. So we see that it's concatenating subscription. If we take a look at this notepad and we were to follow along very closely, we'll see that it's actually matching up subscriptions, parameters out, the subscription ID, resource groups, parameter, resource name, and then if we go over here, providers slash Microsoft.web, matching up, server farms, and then the name of the ASP, which in this case is ASP something 00, right? And then the resources, we see that it is actually deploying a app service plan with this using the ASP name, and it's also deploying the app service itself. So let's take a look at parameters example .json. So in this case, we have the intended app service plan name of 00 and the subscription ID and the resource group name, and then the app service name itself. Okay, so here we are on portal to confirm that previous deployment. We see ASP something 0. That's fine. If we go to test RG, we see ASP something -0 again, including this second app service that we just deployed. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened here. So what we're saying here is that the app service name is going to be test 2023-01, and then we pass all these values that are going to match up to the external resource ID of ASP something 00 that's found inside the resource group something H, right? But why aren't we going to get what we intended? It's because when we're actually targeting the test.rg resource group and we're running this command and we go inside the template, we see that there's no reference that it's actually supposed to deploy this app service plan to something H resource group. It only has a context that is supposed to be inside test.rg resource group, so it will create this extra ASP. However, if you take a look at the app service deployment and the server farm ID, it should still be pointing to the proper place, which is the app service plan inside something H resource group. So here we are back in the portal. If we go to this newly deployed app service test 2023-01 and we go to the app service plan that's associated with it, we will see that it is indeed inside the resource group something. So if we were to go back one inside the test RG and we go to this newly deployed app service plan, we'll see that it has 0 slots, 0 apps, and to confirm it again here, we see no results. So it just created another app service plan inside test RG, but there's no actual app service associated with it because the resource ID that we passed is actually to the app service plan inside something H over here, this one. Okay, so just a reminder that if you're running short on time, skip right to the section where we cover 03 ASP using nested templates because that is a proper solution. But if you're just curious on how to use conditions and booleans to help mitigate this because it may be useful for a separate issue that you came here for, then stick around so that we can cover 02 ASP and different RG use booleans. Okay, if you didn't skip ahead, it's because you're still curious on how to use booleans and conditions to essentially skip this if you need to. It's just useful, although it's not the proper fix. So first and foremost, let's go inside test.rg and delete this ASP duplicate. Okay. Now that we have deleted that ASP, let's go to 02 ASP different RG use booleans. We'll go to run command. And we're going to pick the second. Going to right click over here, open an integrated terminal, and we're going to run it. Okay, so we see that we're still targeting the test RG, template.json, parameters example.json. So this time we'll start by looking at the parameters example.json. So we see that we have this new parameter, deploy ASP deployment, and the value is false. Now if we go to template.json, we're going to see that yes, indeed, we have the reference for it. Default is true. However, we're passing false, so that overrides this. Um, and everything else about this 02 ASP and 01 ASP, these two templates are the same with exception to adding this parameter and adding this condition on line 34. So what this is saying is that in the event that deploy ASP deployment is true, then we are going to deploy this ASP inside test RG, since that is the target that we're passing through when we're running this deployment, right? However, since we passed false over here from this parameter, what we expect to see inside the template.json is that since this is false, it's just going to skip the deployment of this, right? So that works because technically we already had that existing resource of ASP something 00 inside something H resource group. And this way we shouldn't be deploying a duplicate inside test RG. So we'll go inside portal to confirm what we have since we just finished deployment. Okay, so here we are inside portal. We can see, let's just refresh this real quick. Okay, so we can see that the pass parameter was test 23-02. If you haven't realized, every time we increment, we're going 00, 01, 02 to match with the directory that we're passing. But that being said, if we go over here and we go inside the app service plan, we're going to see that it's pointing to the one in something H. If we go over here, this something H ASP has all three of the app services that we deployed so far. So let's go back inside test RG. We're going to refresh this just to make sure, and you can see that for sure we did not deploy the duplicate ASP, even though all the settings were the same from directory 01 and directory 02, with exception to the new boolean that we added and that condition. So again, to give context, this is not the proper way to handle the situation. I just decided to show this in here for anyone who might actually make use of a simple use case of conditions and booleans or conditions in general. This is a very simple one to use. Alright, you made it to the home run stretch. So we're going to open up 03 ASP in different RG use nested templates. We're going to start by going to run command. I actually have it saved already here. So let's go ahead and run this, and let's take a look at this closely. What we're saying here is that we're deploying to the something H resource group instead of test RG like we have been doing for 02 and 01 examples. And as always, template.json, parameters example.json. So this time we're going to start by looking at the parameters example.json. We see that it has similar parameters set as the previous videos minus previous sections for 01 and 02, with the only addition being app service resource group name. We also removed the boolean from 02 because it's not needed anymore. And take note that the app service is being, hyphenated with 03, and app service plan is also ending in 03 instead of 00 like we have been for every other part of this video so far. So we'll move on to the template.json. So we'll take a look here. And we see again the parameters here for app service resource group and ASP server farm ID variables here. So we're going to start by deploying the ASP, but again we're targeting something H resource group, so that means that the ASP is going to the proper resource group for deployment. And then how do we handle the app services to deploy into test.rg? Well, we're doing that by doing a nested template over here, noted by Microsoft.resources deployments. And if you look at the setup, it's essentially the same as a base template. We still have parameters. We would have placeholders for variables if we had any. So that being said, we have two parameters that we're going to be using or passing through inside this nested template. One is the app service name, and the other is the ASP server farm ID or the resource ID. And then you see here we're denoting the nested template, and it is has two parameters to take in. And then the resources, as you can see, this is where we're essentially taking the app service the bread and butter for the app service deployment here. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about exactly what's going on here because you already have the files inside GitHub. But as you can see, um, pretty much we're only using the app service site's name and the server farm ID. So that's pretty much all we need. One thing to note is that inside the parent template, ASP server farm ID is a variable, but remember we pass that in as a parameter for the nested template, right? Right over here. So when we're inside the nested template, we're trying to consume it, it's actually a parameter. And therefore, when we go to the server farm ID for the app service, trying to target the ASP, it's actually parameters that we're passing through inside the nested template. So one thing I almost forgot to cover in my initial recording of this was to cover the fact that we have this resource group property here, and this is where we're passing the app service resource group name. So this is how the nested template knows which resource group to deploy the following resources, in this case, these websites or app services. Okay, so here we are inside Portal, inside test RG resource group. Let's go ahead and refresh it. We see test 2023-03 app service deployed here. And this time we're going to see that the app service plan is ASP something H-03. So if we click on this, we see that it has been deployed to the resource group something H. There's one app inside of it, which is the one that we just deployed. And just for extra confirmation, I don't know why it's taking so long to load this. We'll just switch over here. We'll go ahead and refresh inside this resource group, and we see the newly deployed ASP. Okay, so before we continue, don't forget to clean up after yourself. So let's go ahead and delete all of these app services that we created. Okay, great. So let's go over here, and now let's delete these ASPs. Oh God, I can't spell. So the final thing to cover in this video is that this is not the only way to handle this situation. This is just one of two ways essentially. As you can see from this Microsoft documentation link, which is also going to be in the video description, we can use nested templates or linked templates. So the next video will actually follow linked templates, while this one covers this base example of a nested template. Okay, so that pretty much sums it up for this video. It went a lot longer than I expected, but I wanted to give a full, thorough explanation for every part that we're going through and the different implementations that we can run. And essentially, this is probably a great video for anyone who's a newbie with ARM templates because it shows a couple different options of what you can do. Otherwise, I hope it was helpful, and if it helped you on your journey for learning, please feel free to subscribe and like the video, and do feel free to comment as well. Thanks.